process.
All right, welcome back. My name is Robert, and I am the Recovery Guy. This is a special broadcast of Recovery Guy Podcast. I could not be more excited to introduce you to someone I met over the summer. His name is Chaz, and I'll let Chaz tell you about Chaz. But every now and then you get encouraged. You know, I always look as a person of recovery, you know, with my length of time, you know, we always want to leave a legacy. And one of the most important things about leaving a legacy is helping people along the way, because I'm not going to be around here forever. Obviously, I want to stay as long as I can and have value and bring content and encouragement and a sincerity to help you along your way as you help me along my way. But sooner or later, I'm not going to be here, right? And the question then is, who's going to be here when I'm gone? Who's going to carry that message? And I'm sure that was a concern of the original 100, right? When they wrote the book, 100 average Americans who have, recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And they wrote this book as part of their legacy to let us know how they did it, because they knew they weren't going to be here. So when I meet individuals like Chaz, I get excited because I see what his life is like. Just like with my friend Angie and Wendy and others that I've met along the way, that I get real encouraged when I see this younger group of people of recovery who understand the message, who understand that it's not just about not drinking or not using, it's about changing from the inside out and becoming that person that they always wanted to be, but were afraid they could never become that because that substance, that obstacle was in their way. So I do want to thank you for listening today. And again, whatever channel you're listening on, continue to listen, continue to subscribe, continue to share, and continue to comment. And we will get this thing done together. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Chaz and let him give you a little background. We're actually going to do this in 2 episodes. The first special episode, we're going to get to know Chaz a little bit in his background and what his walk through addiction was like, and then what stopped him in his tracks to say something needs to be different. I can't do this anymore. And then the next episode is going to be like, what is like in recovery? What led you there? What are you doing now? What is it like to be in the rooms? What is it like to share? What is it like to become that person that you always hoped you would become, but in many cases gave up the hope of ever becoming that? So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend Chaz and let him tell you about him. Chaz, it's great to have you in studio today.
Thank you, Robert. It's good to be here. It's a pleasure.
As we look at this first episode, give me a little background of who is Chaz? Where did you come from? What was your family like? What were some of the things that you think are significant about you as an individual? Let us get to know you just a little bit better.
Okay, well, I was born here in Salt Lake. I am the middle child with a twin sister. I have an older brother, and I also have another little sister. We kind of grew up kind of rough going. Like me and my little sister and my twin sister went on one path, and my older brother went on another path. And we ended up I'm drawing blank.
That's all right, man. You know what? Just share what you share and how you're comfortable sharing, and things will flow and you come. Don't be nervous at all.
So, me and my sisters, we went on one path with my mom, and my brother got the privilege or blessed enough to go on one path with my grandparents. And in that, me and my sisters, we kind of had a rough going. My mom was in and out of prison, in and out of jail. We went without, we sometimes didn't have a place to sleep. And then, eventually my mom ended up going to prison for quite a bit. And we ended up going to stay with our dad, which was a lot more of a stable living situation. My dad was, he held a job and he had a new wife. So me and my sisters, moved in with him, and for the most part, had a roof over our heads. But at the same time, was a very abusive, physically and mentally, bring up with my dad, So at that, I reached the age of 16 and I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I left, I moved out or got kicked out, and then I've kind of been on my own ever since. So,
with that type of dynamic, and thank you so much for that kind of honesty, that's not really easy to be that honest, is it?
No.
Because some of that still even hurts a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know with me, even though I've been at this for a long, long time, sometimes when I draw on remembrances, even though I've forgiven the people involved and I know I'm not that same person, there's a part of me that just still hurts just a little bit. And that's okay. I think that really brings value when we sit across the table or across the room from another newcomer that we're trying to encourage, and we're able to muster up that emotion just like you did just now, and we become believable, and that newcomer can relate
absolutely
to us. And you remember being a newcomer when you didn't think you could relate to anyone at all?
Oh, yeah.
and finally you share with someone, and someone's sharing with you, and it's like, I don't know why they understand me, but they do. And there's that sense of calm that comes upon us. I have a question for you as you shared your story between your mom and the experience with your dad. And I'm sure there was some anger, some resentment along the way toward them. But was there ever a feeling or wonder, is it me? Because we look back at that, Chaz, and it's obvious to me it had nothing to do with you, right? Any more than my dad being an alcoholic or my mom a codependent had anything to do with me. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. And I would say with my mom, I didn't think it was me. I knew my mom dealt with her drug addiction and her issues, and I knew that that's what was going on. And I was a mama's boy. I loved my mom, and I know with my mom, that's when I felt loved the most, when I was with my mom. When I moved in with my dad, that's when I started feeling, is it me? Because I didn't get the love. I didn't have the connection. I didn't have anything that I had with my mom that I have with my dad. It was a strict environment. It was mentally and physically abusive. And all the time I thought, is it me, or what am I doing? Or why can't I get the same affection from my dad that I got from my mom? Even though my mom was in and out of jail and using drugs, she still managed to show us kids love and affection like we deserved, and it's crazy that I would have taken my mom, being around my mom on drugs and getting that kind of love and affection than being with my dad, who's a lot more stable, that didn't show any of that.
Wow. That's interesting perspective. Yeah. And again, thank you for sharing that. When you were feeling that sort of disconnect, obviously when you got to your dad, when did you start to feel the attraction toward escaping, right? That ultimately would end up in your using, right? And becoming an addict, an alcoholic. But there was that transition, right? We go through those formidable years of puberty, 13, 14, 15 years old. And for me, I started to feel accountable. And all of a sudden it was required for me to give back. But I never learned how to receive.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to receive, you're incapable of giving back, right? And we have that dynamic and that
Right.
frustration, that pain. And a lot of times we end up using, and I'm not trying to, tell your life story, but was there that turning point for you that said, this isn't working, that isn't working, maybe this will?
For me, it was, in the living situation that I was in with my dad, I was so miserable. I remember thinking, man, I can't wait to grow up. I can't wait to get out of here and live my own life and do my own thing. And I was always constantly trying to be what my dad wanted me to be. And nothing was ever good enough. I either didn't get good enough grades, or I didn't clean the house good enough, or weed the garden good enough. So when I was introduced to drinking alcohol and smoking weed, I was finally in control.
Mm-hmm.
I finally had the control to do something that my dad could not tell me that I wasn't doing it good enough, I wasn't doing enough, or I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's initially how it started. I felt like I was taking control of my life, and it was the only way I knew how was with drugs.
Yeah. Interesting.
Drugs and alcohol.
Interesting. And just trying to find your place to fit. I remember in high school, 15, 16 years old, when I really started, when my experimentation turned to regular usage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in high school, as much as you can get away with, right? Because you had to go to classes back in those days. And so I remember not feeling good enough to be around the good kids, right? But never being quite bad enough to do what I saw some of the others doing. I didn't want to take that leap. So I was trying to find that middle place where I could pretend and be a little bit of each. Did you ever feel that way, to just trying to find a place where, because we don't feel like we belong, right?
Right.
So we're just trying to find our own space. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Did you find yourself going that way, or feeling that way, or using to find that combination?
I think that's what fed my drug use, because like you said, I didn't feel like I fit in with anyone because of, not saying that my bringing up was any worse than the next guy.
Right.
But it was, and I was without, good clothes and money. So I needed to set myself apart from everyone else.
Right.
And I was the kid that wanted to get fucked up the most.
Yeah.
And I wanted, oh my gosh, Chaz did this. He took this many and drank that much. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be known as the guy that got fucked up the most.
Yeah. Yeah. It might have been a negative identity, but it was an identity.
Absolutely.
That, in a strange sort of way, people would respect you because you were the badass who could get more high than the next guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we look back at that, right? And we look back at recovery, and I don't want to get too involved in recovering the steps. We're going to do that the next episode. But when we have that thinking, it's pretty easy to see why we need to be restored to sanity.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, what sane person think that is a badge of honor, right? Yeah.
Someone that's sick.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got real sick, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And in so many ways, we're even lucky to be here having this conversation.
Absolutely.
And that might be the most sad thing about what we go through, is that the majority of people never have an opportunity to have this conversation because they die along the way. And I think it's why people like you and me try to do so much, because we know how fortunate we were to not be that statistic, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a crazy life we live, and at least we know every day that there's another opportunity to do this right. So with your using and with the amount of your using, and I always find this to be an interesting connection, as your view of you began to go down or diminish, did you find, or let me put it this way, did you find as your using increased, your view of Chaz diminished?
I would say, obviously, yes, but it was when the using to party mode, switch to using to maintain and just feel right.
Yeah.
Definitely at that point, the view of Chaz changed horribly, you know, and I just, at that point, could never hold down a job. I didn't have a car, didn't have a driver's license, and all these things at the time, you know, which ultimately resulted in because of my drug use. You know, my life was not progressing or moving forward in any way. So yeah, I felt really down and low about myself, and I covered up by using more.
Yeah. Yeah, because as our view of ourself begins to diminish, it causes more emotional and mental pain, which we need to medicate from.
Yeah.
And our medicine is alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
So as we use more, there's an incredible dichotomy, and it's what kills most people, is that the more I use, the less value I view myself, and the less value I view myself causes greater pain, which I need to medicate more from. And it's like, you know, working against each other. You know, it's like meth addicts, right? They're two dangerous components. One is that meth deletes all of your nutrients, and you don't want to eat to replenish the nutrients. So it's like pulling against itself at the same time. And it causes a greater and accelerated path to destruction and in many cases death. So when you found yourself using, you get to a particular place, right? Take us through a timeline of 15, 16, 17 years, and then let's transition as we close out this episode. Let's go to when you knew something had to change, when you hit that wall. So let's take us to progressing through your addiction, not so much as how much you used, but to the depths that darkness you got to, that emotion, right? Because quantity is just a number.
Oh, yeah. Right?
What it does to us on an emotional, spiritual, physical, and psychological or mental level is the real damage, right? And then what happened to get you to say something needs to change? Walk us through that. So
I started drinking alcohol and smoking weed at the age of 15. And like I said, that was my way of gaining control of my situation in my life. From that point, it was obviously, to me, I consider alcohol the gateway. Yeah. I drank alcohol first, and then it was weed. And I did that until about 16, 15 to 16, I messed around with that. And then I, got a brilliant idea. Well, why don't we get some Coke? I want to try that. I've never tried that. And of course, in the movies and the shows, it looks like a lot of fun. Yeah. And so, between 16 and 17, I just toyed around with recreational drugs, ecstasy, cocaine, mushrooms, just basically doing what everyone else was doing, and we'd all go and hang out together. Okay. Then at 17 is when I tried heroin for the first time. And I thought it was just another party drug, and but I also knew it fucked me up the most. Yeah. And that was my goal. Sure. And before I knew it, I was physically and mentally addicted to heroin. And that was the battle that I've been fighting ever since I was 17. Yeah. And, it's, I've had clean. So from 17 to 23, I battled the heroin addiction on and off. I'd go to methadone clinics. I would try and quit cold turkey, and they were all just temporary fixes. I would always end up ultimately, because at that point, I had no idea of really what I was dealing with, other than it was just something I have to stop doing. Right.
We don't look at it in terms of a dangerous drug that could kill us.
Absolutely.
We look at it as something that's just medicating, and as they would say, it's really worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I'd get these little clean spurts, and then I'd start drinking, because it wasn't my drug of choice. So in my mind, it was okay. And then before I knew it, I was using again.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how, you end up drinking, and then next thing you know, you're at the dope man's house.
Yeah.
And that's, why today I classify myself as an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But from 17 to 23 was on and off with the heroin addiction. And then I had another clean spell that was about 2 years long. And then I started using Adderall.
Okay.
As a party drug. I could go out to the bars and stay up all night and have fun. And then the Adderall ran out.
Yeah.
And then, and I wanted to try meth, but I didn't at the same time because I saw what it put my mom through. And I vowed to stay away from it, but the phenomenon of craving was a lot more powerful than my will.
Yeah.
And I started using meth, and which led to me using heroin again. So from, 25 to 29, it was 28, I was shooting meth and using heroin on a daily basis. And that's when my life was at its bottom. That's when I was physically, mentally, and spiritually bankrupt to a point where I had to do something drastic to change.
Was there, obviously the downtrend is gradual, was there something significant? Did you get confronted? Was there just a come to terms moment? For me, in February of 1986, I looked in the mirror and I saw myself as dead. There was no more voices. There was no one saying, "What are you doing?" Everything was quiet. And I looked and I was going to die. And I was convinced that if something doesn't change, I was going to die. And it scared me into treatment that day. Was there anything significant like that? Do you remember something that just said, "Chaz, you can't do this"?
I do, but it didn't happen overnight. My date is December 26, 2016.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way.
And on that day, I had no intentions on quitting.
Yeah.
But I had a divine intervention, and I ended up going to jail. And in that process of going to jail, I went through the most horrible withdrawals I've ever been through. And once I was out of that fog of going through the withdrawals, and I was starting to get my mind right, and I was starting to put on a couple pounds because I weighed in at 138 pounds.
I saw that picture of you, and you're not the same cat.
No, not at all. And I thought I looked good back then.
Yeah, of course we did.
Yeah. So, but I remember sitting in my jail cell, and I think it was like 3 weeks into my jail stay, and I was changing out of my gel jumpsuit, and I could just see all my ribs. I could see the chest plate, ribs just poking out. And I just was like, man, I am skinny. I am sick, and at that time, it's almost like my life unfroze, cause for the past, 6-7 years, I've been in my own zone, in my own thing, using and dealing and doing whatever I wanted. And I never went without. And so I was living this life on Chaz's terms and Chaz's way, not taking in consideration of my actual life and my kids and all that. And so when I finally came out of that fog in jail, it was like time unfroze, and I'm like, holy crap, what have I been doing for the past 6 years, 7 years? How could I do this to my children? how could I do this to myself? I haven't accomplished anything, and I'm sitting in jail, and this is the last place I need to be. Yeah. I was sick. I wasn't a hardcore criminal, and I just needed help.
Yeah.
And at that point, I knew that I had to do something to change, and I needed to reach out and ask for help. And that's exactly what I did.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, me too.
Because we're going to talk about that in the next episode. So, Chaz, thank you for sharing. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for being vulnerable and putting yourself out there, because, we're only as sick as our secrets. And the more we share, the more we heal, right? And we become less ashamed, right? In terms of who we were, because we were never that person. But our drug use and our addiction had us become that. And it's obvious to me, sitting across folks, he's not the 135-pound guy he used to be. If I was going to meet Chaz in a dark alley, I would want to make sure he's my friend, because he's pretty big, he's pretty healthy, and more importantly, just if you could see his smile right now, you would know that this life that he's been given, he's taken full advantage. So you're not going to want to miss episode 2 when we discuss what it's like for him in the rooms of recovery, and what are some of the things that he's doing to help ensure that one day at a time he can stay recovered for the rest of his life. Hey, my name is Robert. I'm the Recovery Guy. Thank you for joining us today for this special edition. Keep listening, keep sharing, keep commenting, and keep subscribing. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. I am the Recovery Guy.
I was trying to do everything